Joining us from the dream team from the 96 Bulls is the great Mike Benz. So I don't even know where to begin with this. The top line here is that Comey and Adam Schiff are leaking classified information. So talk me through what should happen here. This has got to be a crime. You say appear on X. Obviously, everybody follow Mike Benz. You already do. Mike Benz is at, you have millions of followers, Mike? Yes, I think so. So everybody follow Mike Benz. He says this has got to be a crime. Talk us through it, Mike. I think it's being laid bare right now. These FBI
Well,
documents.
the issue is this was never declassified. You saw this a lot during Trump 1. And one of the operative questions here is the statute of limitations. We're now in the year 2025. Much of this deals with, for example, 2017, when Adam Schiff and James Comey were leaking. James Comey was still the FBI director in 2017. I believe the statute of limitations is 5 years for many of these crimes. And so just like James Clapper perjuring himself about domestic bulk collection by the NSA, these sorts of mishandling of classified document crimes tend to have a 5 year statute of limitations. And so you do still have a crime on the books, but a crime that it appears that in this case they may have gotten away with. But you played a clip earlier of Representative Jim Jordan asking why Christopher Wray did not disclose this, why it had to come to FBI Director Kash Patel. And I think everybody knows the reason, which is that Christopher Wray was out to get Donald Trump, that the FBI was completely corrupted under Christopher Wray, and everything that was done from the moment James Comey was replaced with Christopher Wray was simply a continuation, kind of just a shorter, frumpier James Comey put in put in the FBI stead. In fact, if folks remember, there was an incredible event early on where Christopher Wray should have been sacked within his first few months when Christopher Wray threatened to leave because Trump questioned the intelligence community assessment about Russian interference. This was a pretty shocking moment, I think, in FBI history, where the FBI director said, if the president is going to question the intelligence community, then I don't feel confident leading it if the president's going to throw us under the bus. Well, should have been thrown directly under the bus at that very moment. I think there was probably so much turmoil in those early months of Trump world
Yes.
that getting rid of an FBI director you just installed may have looked bad in the heat of also getting rid of the chief of staff and DHS director. I don't know if there were donor considerations, but whatever it was, keeping Christopher Wray inside your system at the FBI was like keeping a tapeworm inside because you've got some spare food circulating. It was just
Right. What about the Espionage Act, Mike? What about the Espionage Act? That has a 10-year statute of limitation. What about
well,
criminal conspiracy? I mean, I guess some theories that have been posited on this program is that you could argue that there is a criminal conspiracy that is currently ongoing uh, in order to kneecap President Trump, given
no,
this
that's
information.
right. That's a good point. I mean, certainly Julian Assange was tried under the Espionage Act for
Yes.
far lesser crimes than the people going after him. The
Yes, that's a
part of
great
this,
point. Like, in what world is Julian Assange, and how is this any different, right? Like, is so we know
right?
we have dead to rights the we had dead to rights Comey's friend saying that he gave me a bunch of classified information, and then I gave that to the media. So can you please explain to me how that's any different than them putting Julian Assange, like locking him away
Right. I
for
mean,
decades?
if if a security clearance was granted to the New York Times reporters on a selective basis to access it and then describe the document without revealing sources and methods. I'm trying to think of what the defense might be other than that. I do think that you have the criminal conspiracy play here around James Comey for other crimes related to the intelligence community assessment. Even if this were not tried as a one-off crime, I think you still have James Comey, John Brennan, Hillary Clinton, and potentially Barack Obama up for the grand jury uh, indictment referral. We know that currently grand jury is being arranged in order to determine criminal wrongdoing in the Russiagate affair. Certainly, these kind of leaks, if not deemed criminal unto themselves, could be entered to show the sort of rank partisan hackery that went
Yes.
into the intelligence community assessment itself, given it was
Yes.
so close on the heels of it.
Wouldn't it be nice to, like, even if like the process just is the punishment, it'd just be very nice to adjudicate this in the public arena for people to just understand how slimy and criminal it all is. And I guess that's what we're seeing with these emails, document leaks. It's enraging that we had control of power when you were working for the Trump administration. And I know that you only worked for a short time period, and like it's not like anyone was asking you, but I wish they had. But it's so frustrating, it's so maddening that all of this evidence just was sitting there, laid bare. The critical infrastructure emails, the Russiagate stuff, Hillary Clinton, all of it was just sitting there. And this, by the way, is all this is connected. The Adam Schiff leaking operation,
Yeah.
It's all connected to the same people at Julian Smith. It's wild that it just sat there for so long, locked in a vault. It's maddening.
Well, I think it's what everyone suspected. Everyone knew that the FBI was corrupt under Trump 1. We knew it in the White House. As a civilian, you could easily surmise it. But there was the issue, which was that Trump won, perhaps because there was not as many Trump allies in Congress or as strong a Trump institutional donor base across the private sector. But for whatever reason, Trump could not clean house at his own Justice Department, at his own FBI, at his own CIA. I don't know if that was for the same reason that he felt unwilling to pull the trigger about going after Hillary Clinton and the like, but certainly Trump too is much more unchained, and I think much more willing to disregard the intelligence community. For a long time, Trump refused the presidential daily briefing, refused to receive intelligence briefings from the Biden intelligence folks during the transition period. Doesn't trust them at all. I think there was a point when Trump became president, because remember, this is happening. These revelations refer to early 2017. These were Trump's first months as president of the United States. I think at that point he still assumed that when a general walks into the White House with enough decorations on his suit, his word actually means something.
Yeah.
I think Trump learned a lot of very hard lessons during that period. It was James Comey who set up General Flynn, and then bragged about it after Comey got fired. Said that we would never have attempted something like that under a Hillary Clinton presidency,
Yes.
but we figured Trump was green and we could get away with it. And you even had the FBI agents saying, "Is our goal here to get him fired or to get him to perjure himself? Basically, is our goal here to entrap him or to run a domestic political operation to get him fired?" I mean, the idea that the FBI would plot to get a political appointee fired, and that itself is not a crime. That was known years ago that James Comey pulled that operation. That's a total violation of the FBI charter. It's a complete inversion of the democratic process itself to have a domestic spy agency plot a political black op in order to destroy the employment of a political appointee. But the FBI was the house of crimes under James Comey. I would be hard-pressed to think that Pam Bondi can't find one.
Here's one. This was my favorite post of yours ever. And it's, I can't read it on this family show. But since it all ties together, and so many of these people, Julia, like we know who Julia is. So many of these people are, Julia was the foreign policy advisor for Hillary Clinton. She works actually with like Adam Schiff's team. All of these leakers, all these Russiagate leakers, they're all in league together. It's all an entire rat's nest. But she recommended the critical infrastructure lie that was, of course, the predicate for your entire career, Mike.
Yeah.
And so you've seen it now laid bare. And I have a couple of questions about this, but What was it? What was this like to actually see the original source documents for the terms that have haunted your dreams, Mike?
My
Critical
mind was,
infrastructure.
my mind was completely warped for about 3 days after seeing this because of how cavalier it is. I mean, so that message itself is a total stunner. I think it's probably one of the most stunning things we've learned in 2025 with classified documents being leaked. That single paragraph had Hillary Clinton approving a plan to set up Trump as being vilified by Russia in July, months before the Russiagate hoax was orchestrated through the Intelligence Committee assessment in January 2017. That we now saw sort of the source documents for John Brennan's handwritten notes on August 3rd, 2016, where Brennan briefed Obama and James Comey on Hillary Clinton approving a plan to vilify Donald Trump in a scheme alleging Russian interference by the Russian security services. We now know that it was that classified annex that John Brennan was referring to. So the CIA saw that. We saw in that same paragraph that CrowdStrike would provide the media, which is exactly what was done. CrowdStrike is not a cybersecurity company. They're a cyber hoax for hire company. You pay them money and they tell you whoever you want the media to print as hacking an election or hacking solar winds or hacking anyone in the world. See, a lot of this cybersecurity attribution game is just a fugazi. There's no real way to know for sure with so many of these things. You can simply have a false attribution. You can simply have a VPN or leave fingerprints from whoever you want. The CIA famously did this itself with its Pocket Putin false attribution guide, which was leaked by Julian Assange in Vault 7. And CrowdStrike is a Dmitry Alperovitch joint. That's the Atlantic Council. It's the same George Soros NATO network. But that email in July had them saying we have no direct evidence. Hillary Clinton just approved this plan to frame Trump as being set up as being helped by the Russians, but we have no evidence of this. So CrowdStrike will come in and provide the media, not even provide the proof, provide the media, give the media a story. And then the following email says later in time, the FBI will come and pour oil on it.
That's what it said. We read him live on. It's like it's so belligerent, Mike. It's so belligerent, Mike.
And then what they say in the middle of it, though, which I think was not caught by many people, was that say something like critical infrastructure is a menace to elections under Russian threat, and it's such a glib statement. Say something like critical infrastructure, when critical infrastructure was exactly the phrase that was rolled out. And then it was the Russian attack on critical infrastructure, which never existed, and they knew it never existed, which was used as the justification to effectively federalize elections by having DHS declare elections itself as critical infrastructure. This was the reason you had CISA set up. This was the reason you had DHS control over electronic voting machines, while DHS simultaneously deemed itself the Ministry of Truth to censor anyone who questioned the electronic voting machines that DHS took control of. It was this critical infrastructure hoax that resulted in the entire censorship industrial complex in the United States, which started off in DHS before it spread throughout the whole of government in the Biden administration. I would not be here were it not for this hoax itself. But their defense, what you saw happen in the past week since this came out, is they said, well, this is from Leonard Bernardo, who was the Open Society Institute Eurasia Center head, which is just too perfect. I've been saying all along, this whole thing is the great world continent that has been the focus of U.S. foreign policy since the early 1900s and the Alfred Milner plan. But there's $75 trillion worth of natural resources in Eurasia. So everyone from BlackRock to the George Soros Management Fund to London and Wall Street has made billions and billions of dollars of bets on Eurasia being folded entirely into NATO, into the Western civil and political and military control. And Trump represented a threat to that plan's completion. That was under maximum pursuit by Obama, by George Bush, by Bill Clinton, all the way through the Cold War. And so the fact that it was the Open Society Institute Eurasia Center, that it was the George Soros Eurasia. Now, George Soros met with Hillary Clinton. You can pull this up in August 2016. Both he and the senior head of the Eurasia Center. If you look up George Soros, Hillary Clinton 2016 in August, George Soros is a hedge fund with a civil society institution attached, just like Harvard is a hedge fund with a university attached. George Soros has billions of dollars of investments in Eurasia, and then he meets with the Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton. Here it is, and you'll see if you just run a Control F for Eurasia, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. So they would be in position to know. They were literally meeting Soros with his billions of dollars of investments that depend on U.S. foreign policy, buttering his bread, setting up those investments to become profitable because the Secretary of State gets to control all policy in the region. And so it was that exact center who would know. Now, their defense in the past week has been, well, Leonard Bernardo said he did not recall writing that email, and because it was hacked by Russia, we're told, there's no proof that he actually said this, even though it's in these emails. Well, riddle me this, New York Times. If Leonard Bernardo didn't write it, then how was this hacker able to perfectly predict exactly what CrowdStrike would do, or that the DNC would even employ CrowdStrike? How were they able to predict exactly what the FBI did? Did this hacker also hack the brain of James Comey? How did this hacker predict exactly what the Department of Homeland Security? Did he hack DHS Secretary Jed Johnson's brain? Did this hacker hack the DNC, CrowdStrike, the CIA, the FBI, Barack Obama? This is the most clairvoyant hacker in human history. No. It was obviously foreknowledge by the Open Society Institute, by George Soros, by James Comey, by John Brennan, by Hillary Clinton, and they got caught flat busted and classified this thing for 9 years because of how damning this thing is.
So I have to ask, where does it go now for George Soros? You say that Hillary Clinton is guilty of a criminal conspiracy. Maybe you can touch on that. But what does this look like for the George Soros tie-in, which is, while some may have suspected it, Mike, is now in the black and white. The Open Society Foundation was critical to this. And more importantly, we've had members of Congress and senators on our program saying, well, that makes a lot of sense. And here's why. Because somebody has to pay for it all. You know, it's not easy to employ Christopher Steele. It's not cheap to get a bunch of Russian spies to write disinformation on Trump. This kind of operation requires a ton of lawyers. It requires a lot of people to go walk these documents into the FBI, into the CIA. Somebody had to pay for it. And those in the know say it was George Soros that was actually funding all of this. What kind of culpability does he have?
Well, unfortunately, you don't see anything in here that ties George Soros. This is Leonard Bernardo, which is a George Soros underling. The Open Society Foundation is obviously run by Soros, and it's Eurasia Center under it. You don't have in this document trail a reference that Leonard Bernardo, for example, knew because of George Soros or George Soros arranged. But I think there are other methods of accountability here. Now, it is also quite telling. I believe it was Judge Beryl Howell that Durham, I believe, attempted to actually run down the Leonard Bernardo leads and to get access to Leonard Bernardo's Gmail, I believe it was, to his personal emails and to his Open Society Institute emails, because I believe John Durham interviewed Leonard Bernardo about this, and that's why Leonard Bernardo, that quote that I mentioned, him saying that I I don't recall writing this email. Of course, the New York Times, I believe, misreported that quote and said that Leonard Bernardo denied ever writing it. And of course, that's not a denial. To say that I don't recall is the great American catch-all that allows you to deny knowledge of having doing it
Sure, but
without perjuring yourself, because you can never prove that the person did or didn't remember.
what I'm saying, Mike, is why can't we get a subpoena? I mean, we did get a subpoena, actually. Well, like we have Tim Burchett was on the show saying, no, let's subpoena. And then Tim Burchett subpoenaed that afternoon.
Yeah.
It's not up to him. It's up to Chairman Comer.
Right. Well, this is what I'm saying is I believe that there was a court fight about this already with Durham, and that a judge I believe appeared to block the FBI being able to get a court-ordered subpoena of Leonard Bernardo's emails in order to actually validate it, because that was, like I was saying, this they've been allowed to deny that these emails are real or that they really wrote those emails, because the FBI has been unable to get access through a court to the actual underlying emails, which is another one of these. You run into this, DC court problem, the same one that the Trump admin has experienced in so many other cases. But I think if a fresh case were to be brought, particularly if it can be done outside of the DC jurisdiction, if you can get this in front of a Florida jury because of the nexus to Mar-a-Lago, or the nexus to individuals who were tracked or surveilled or who were subjected to this conspiracy, outside of the 95% Democrat District of Columbia, I think that you would probably get a more favorable ruling.
So you could, but James Comer doesn't need that. James Comer can go subpoena George Soros right now, should he? James Comer doesn't need like some judge to sign off on it. He's the authority. He's the constitutional authority. Go.
Yeah, to the extent that that's enforceable.
Happy 95th birthday, George Soros. Right?
But there's also lots of other things that can be done. Obviously, I support the maximum amount of pressure that can be exerted through Congress on this corrupt cabal here. One of the things that I'm very focused on is that I believe that we need declassifications beyond just what's happening at the FBI layer and the ODNI layer. We need them at the USAID and the State Department layer, as well as the U.S. Institute of Peace, which Darren Beattie just became the acting president of. George Soros has made his whole career on skating on the back of the State Department. This is why he met with Hillary Clinton in August 2016, around exactly at the time that these emails came out, and that exactly the time that Hillary Clinton made her pivot, her first speech in August 2016, alleging Trump being backed by Russia, right as she's meeting with.
I can tell you, Mike, Trump is about ready to come out at the Kennedy Center, but he hasn't come out yet. I want to show the preview shot here, ladies and gentlemen. You can see that everyone's sort of getting seated right now. I just saw Lindsey Graham and Susie Wiles come in. Mike, I want to go very quickly here. You have a post up saying Hillary Clinton is absolutely guilty of a criminal conspiracy to defraud the American taxpayers and intel community, and so on. How would that prosecution go? Is that like too much of a pipe dream to even dream about? Dare a boy dream, Mike?
I'm dreaming right now. I think that Trump was merciful and naive and innocent when he first became president in 2017, after saying that Hillary Clinton would be in jail. And then Hillary Clinton campaigned on putting Trump in jail. They nearly did. They shot him in the face. They hit him with 91 felonies, 1,000 years in prison if Trump didn't win the election. And now, they're dead to rights here. Hillary Clinton clearly approved this plan to falsify information in order to portray Donald Trump as being backed by Russia, and then conspired with the head of the Central Intelligence Agency, the head of the FBI, potentially the former president of the United States himself. I don't think you're going to have riots in the streets if John Brennan and Hillary Clinton are arrested. I think that Hillary Clinton is not exactly a beloved figure on the left. I think that I could see there being a tremendous amount of civil disturbance if Barack Obama is indicted, even though he looks guilty as well. And then you also don't
also has immunity. He also has immunity. Hillary doesn't.
Right, but I think that you don't even need. I think that having Hillary Clinton and John Brennan indicted for this, um, as and simply allege the conspiracy that they falsified information to conducted fraud to falsify intelligence in order to run this gambit. And then their only defense is that they really believe their own BS. I mean, that's the only defense that they would have. You have an agreement and an affirmative act in furtherance. So you have the two necessary legal components in order to bring the indictment. Their only defense is that, well, we really believe that Russia, it wasn't, we didn't know it to be, even though it was false, we didn't know it to be false at the time. And I think that's belied by several things. We have the circumstantial evidence around intent from these emails in the classified annex, the emails in John Brennan's handwritten notes. But they didn't. This was the magic behind the Trump prosecution. They never had a intent for Trump to commit crimes, but they charged him anyway. This Justice Department has, if that's rule of law, then it has to be brought against Hillary Clinton and John Brennan too.
Thank you, Mike. Perfect timing. Here we go. President Trump. Godspeed, Mike. Everyone follow Mike.